invention. A kingdom for a stage, princes to act, and monarchs to behold the swelling sea. But, pardon, gentles all, the flat, unraised spirits that have dared on this unworthy scaffold to bring forward so great an object. Can this cockpit hold the vasty fields of France? Or may we cram within this wooden O the very casks that did affright the air at Agincourt? Oh, pardon, since a crooked figure may attest in a little place a million, and let us cipher to this great account. On your imaginary forces work, for 'tis your thoughts that now must deck our kings, carry them here and there, jumping o'er time, turning the accomplishment of many years into an hourglass. For the which supply, admit me, chorus to this history, who prologue like your humble patience pray, gently to hear, kindly to judge, our play.
The History of England by Jane Austen, aged 15 and a half, a partial, prejudiced, and ignorant historian. Henry IV ascended the throne of England, much to his own satisfaction, in the year 1399, having prevailed on his cousin and predecessor, Richard II, to resign it to him and to retire for the rest of his life to Pomfret Castle, where he happened to be murdered. Be this as it may, King Henry did not live there either, but falling ill, his son, the Prince of Wales, came and took away the crown, whereupon he made a long speech, for which I must refer the reader to Shakespeare's play. Things being as if between them, the king died, and was succeeded by his son, Henry V, who grew quite reformed and amiable, forsaking all his dissipated companions.
Henry was a wild boy, fond of fun and fooling. When he was a Prince of Wales, he made a national schooling, rollicking with tosspots, trying daddy's crown on. Henry was the sort of boy fathers always frown on.
Now, my good sweet Haylock, ride with us tomorrow. I have just to execute that I cannot manage alone. Falstaff, Baldorf, Petto, and Gadget shall rob those men that we have already waylaid. Yourself and I will not be there, and when they have booted, if you and I do not rob them, cut his head from my shoulders.
But how shall we part with them and set him forth?
Why, we will set forth before or after them, and appoint them a pleasant meeting, wherein, if starvation fail, a noble day of venture upon the exploit themselves, which we shall have no sooner achieved, but we will set upon them.
Yea, 'tis like they'll know us by our horses, by our habits, by every other appointment to be ourselves.
Our horses they shall not see. I'll tie them in the woods. Our visage we shall change for them.
Yea, I doubt it will be too hard for us.
Well, for two of them I know them to be as true brave cowards as they return back, and for the third, if he fights longer than he sees reason, I'll forswear arms. The virtue of this jest will be the incomprehensible lie that the same fat rogue will tell us when we meet at supper. How 30 is he forward? What wants, what blows, what extremities he endured? And in the reproof of this lies the jest.
Well, I'll go with you tomorrow, provide all these things necessary, meet me tomorrow night at Eastham. There I will sup. Farewell.
Farewell, my lord.
I know you all, and with a while uphold the annual humour of your idleness. If all the year were playing holidays, to sport would be as tedious as to work, and when they seldom come, they wish to come, and nothing pleases but rare accidents. So when this loose behaviour I throw off, and pay the debt I never promised. By how much better than my word I am, by how much I falsify men's hopes, like a bright metal on the southern ground, my reformation glittering o'er my fault, to show you more beauty and attract more eyes, which happily fall to set us off. I saw a fence to make a fence of steel, deep in time when men think of least. I will.
When Henry became king, he did indeed throw off his loose behaviour, and also, according to Shakespeare, his former companions, with shocking and abrupt brutality.
God save thy praise, sweet Hal, my royal Hal. God save thee, your wits. Know you what as you speak.
By Jove, my king, I speak to thee, my heart.
I know thee not, old man. Fall to thy prayers. Thou ill-white hair so full and jester. I once no dreamed of such a kind man, so soft and swelled, so old and so profane. But being awake, I despise my dream. Reply not to me in full-born jest. I banish thee to pain of death. Not come near our person by 10 miles. Be it your charge, my lord, to see the tenor of our words. Set off.
In spite of this, as we shall see, Henry V never lost his ability to communicate with the common man. And here's an excerpt from the household accounts of Henry VII, which nicely illustrates the contradiction between kingliness and the common touch. To the princess's string minstrels at Westminster, £2. To a woman that singeth with the fiddle, 2 shillings. To the trumpeters that blow when the king comes over the water, 3 shillings and 4. To the children for singing in the garden, 9 shillings and 4. To a mariner that brought an eagle, 6 shillings and 8. To clothes for a nightingale, £1. To the reapers in the way of a reward, 2 pennies. To a fellow for eating coal, 6 shillings and 8. For a lion, £2 13 and 4. For a leopard, £13 6 and 8. For tennis balls, 3 shillings. Oh, and for John Cabot, who discovered Newfoundland in 1497, to him that found the new isle, £10.
The crimes and cruelties of Henry VIII are too numerous to mention, and nothing can be said in his vindication but that his abolishing religious houses and leaving them to the ruinous depredations of time has been of infinite use to the landscape in general.
Bluff King Howell's full of beans, he married half a dozen queens. The 3 called Kate, they cried the bands, and 1 called Jane and a couple of Annes.
Now, Williams of Shakespeare tells us never wanted to join in the first place. Not surprising, really, when you consider the torrid time being endured by Henry's current wife, Catherine of Aragon, as this scene is taking place.
Not for that neither. Here's the pang that pinches. His Highness having lived so long with her, and she, so good a lady, and her tongue had ever pronounced a son of her. By my life, she never knew harm doing. Oh, now, for so many courses of the sullen throne, still growing in her majesty and pomp, of which to me 1,000 far more bitter than 'tis sweet to first to require. After this process, to give her the avant, it is a pity with little monster.
Heart's a most hard-tempered mill to lament for her.
Oh, God's will, much better she had ne'er known fault, though it were temporal. Yet if that quarrel, fortune do divorce it from the bearer, 'tis a sufferance hanging for soul and body severing.
And that poor lady, she's a stranger now again.
So much the more must pity drop upon her. Verily, I swear, it is better to be lowly born, arranging content with humble livers, than to be perked up in glitter and grief and wear a golden sorrow.
Our content is our best habit.
By my troth of maidenhead, I would not be a queen.
Would be, I would. I'd venture maidenhead thought. And so would you, for all this spice of your hypocrisy. You, that have so fine parts of woman on you, have too a woman's heart, which ever yet affected eminence, wealth, sovereignty, which to say sooth are blessings and rich gifts, saving your mincing, the capacity of your soft chivalrous conscience would receive, if you might please to stretch it.
Nay, good troth.
Yes, troth, a troth, you would not be a queen.
No, not for all the riches in the world.
'Tis strange, a threepence board would hire me, old as I am, to queen it. But I pray you, what think you of the Duchess? Have you limbs to bear that lord of title?
No, in truth.
Then you are weakly made. Look off a little. I would not be a young count in your way for more than blushing comes to. If your back cannot vouchsafe this burden, 'tis too weak ever to get a boy.
How you do talk! I swear again, I will not be a queen for all the world.
fair but to be of a brown complexion.
Alas, who should men trust? I promise you I see no such thing in her as hath been shown unto me of her. I see nothing in this woman as men report of her, and I marvel that wise men should have made such a report as they have done. Say what they will, she is nothing fair.
But if I had known so much before, she had no coming hither. But what remedy now?
By my faith, you say true. But methinks she hath a queenly manner withal.
Then there is no remedy but to put my neck in the yoke. My lord, if it were not to satisfy the world in my realm, I would not do what I must do this day for an unearthly thing.
Anne Boleyn was his second wife. He swore to cherish her all his life, but seeing a third, he wished instead he chopped off poor Anne Boleyn's head.
As the holly groweth green and never changeth hue, so mine there have been unto my lovely tree. Green throweth the holly, so doth the ivy, though wintry floods blow ne'er so high, green groweth the holly. Now unto my lady, promise to her I make, from all other only to her I needly take. Green groweth the holly, so doth the ivy, though wintry clouds blow ne'er so high, green groweth the holly.
not knowing how to interpret them, whether to my disadvantage, as you show in some places, or to my advantage, as I understand them in some others. Beseeching you, Ernest, to let me know expressly your whole mind as to the love between us two. It is absolutely necessary for me to obtain this answer, having been for above a year stricken with the dart of love, and not yet sure whether I shall fail of finding a place in your heart and affection. Which last point has prevented me for some time past from calling you my mistress. If you please to do the office of a true, loyal mistress and friend, and give yourself body and heart to me, I promise you that not only the name shall be given to you, but also that I will take you for my only mistress, casting off all others besides you out of my thoughts and affections, and serve you only. I beseech you to give an entire answer to this my rude letter, and appoint some place where I may have it by word of mouth, and I will go thither with all my heart. Written by the hand of him who will willingly remain yours, wishing myself, especially of an evening, in my sweetheart arms, whose pretty duckies I shall shortly kiss. Henricus Rix.
How fares the Queen? Never better. There is nothing in the court that sorts her dancing.
Alas, it isn't me to think to what misery she will shortly come. Those dancing girls will spurn on her heads like footballs, but it will not be long ere she will dance headless.
That whereas Queen Anne has been the wife of Henry VIII, for 3 years and more, she, despising her marriage and entertaining malice against the king, and following daily her frail and carnal lust, did falsely and treacherously procure, by means of base conversations, touchings, gifts, and other infamous incitations, divers of the king's daily and familiar servants, to be her adulterers and concubines, so that several of the king's servants yielded to her vile provocations. Furthermore, that the queen and other of the said traitors jointly and severally confessed and imagined the king's death, and that the queen had frequently promised to marry some one of the traitors whenever the king should depart this life, affirming that she would never love the king in her heart.
My lord, you have chosen me from your low estate to be your queen and companion, far beyond my deserved desire. If then you found me worthy of such honour, good grace, let not any light fancy or bad counsel of my enemies withdraw your princely favour from me. Try me, good king, but let me have a lawful trial, and let not my sworn enemies assist my accusers and judges. But if you have already determined of me, and that not only my death, but my infamous slander must bring you the enjoyment of your desired pleasure, then I desire of God that he will pardon your great sin herein. My last and only request shall be that myself only shall bear the burden of your grace's displeasure, and that it may not touch the innocent souls, those poor gentlemen whom I understand are likewise in strait imprisonment for my sake. If ever I have found favour in your sight, if ever the name of Anne Boleyn has been pleasing to your ears, let me obtain this last request. And I shall so leave to trouble your grace any further. My earnest prayers to the Trinity to have your grace in his good keeping, and to direct you in all your actions, from a doleful prison in the Tower to 6th of May, your most loyal and faithful wife, A. B. Master Kingston, I hear that I shall not die before noon.
So, my lady,
I am very sorry, therefore, for above to be dead by now, past my pay. But I heard say the executioner was very good, and it is so little in it. I pray God save the king, send him long to reign over you, for a gentle and more merciful prince was there never, and to me he was ever good, a sovereign lord.
When most deeply in love with Anne Boleyn, Henry wrote some of his most beautiful music, which, unlike the inspiration, survived and is still often performed. Shakespeare, ever the pragmatic professional, ensured that the birth of Elizabeth was given its full due.
Let me speak, sir. This royal infant, heaven still move about her, though in her cradle yet now promises upon this land 1,000 blessings.
Thou speakest wonders, O Lord Archbishop. Thou hast made me now a man. Never before this happy child did I give any This oracle of comfort has so pleased me that when I am in heaven, I shall desire to see what this child does and praise my Maker. This day no man think he has business at his house, for all shall stay. This little one shall make it holiday.
The last portrait we have of Henry is in the Psalter that he used. He's there with Will Summers, his jester, looking sad, tired and old as death. But he's still playing his Welsh harp, still finding solace in his music. The monarchy has not always been noted for its artistic sensibilities. In 1743, George II was invited to attend the first night of Handel's Messiah. On hearing the words sung, "And he shall reign forever and ever," the king, with his bad command of the English language, rose to his feet, believing this to be a personal tribute to himself. The audience, seeing the king stand up, rose to their feet also. It is still the custom for the audience to stand at this part of the performance, although not many people realise why. Friends of the composer Dame Ethel Smythe persuaded King Edward VII to attend the opening night of her opera The Wreckers. After the performance, Sir Thomas Beecham decided to go and ask what the king thought of the performance.
So, what did His Majesty think? I'm afraid I have no idea. Didn't he say anything? Well, yes, he did say something. Yes, yes. He suddenly woke up 3 quarters of the night through and said, "Fritz, that's the 4th time that firm voice has raised me."
On another occasion, the Royal Grenadier Guards regaled His Majesty with extracts from Richard Strauss's Electra.
You! Yes, you! We have no idea what the band has just played, but it is never to be played again.
The visual arts fared no better. On the Impressionists,
Here's something to make you laugh, May.
on Turner,
I tell you what, Turner was mad. My grandmother always said so.
and here he is trying to persuade Sir Kenneth Clarke to become a surveyor of the King's pictures.
So, why the devil won't you come and work for me?
Because I wouldn't have time to do the job properly.
What's there to do, man?
Well, sir, pictures need looking after.
There's nothing wrong with them.
And people write letters asking for information.
Don't answer them. I want you to take a job, damn it!
The Duke of Windsor took a similarly philistine view with his nephew, later Lord Harum, the eminent musicologist and opera administrator.
What about George and his music? Both his parents were perfectly normal.
However, enlightenment dawns in the most unexpected places. The Duke of Edinburgh, after the 1969 Royal Variety Show.
What about Tom Jones? He must have made me. He's a bloody waffle singer.
James I. Though this king had some faults, on the whole, I cannot help liking him. He was a Roman Catholic, and as I myself, partial to the Roman Catholic religion, it is with infinite regret that I am obliged to blame the behaviour of any member of it. Yet, truth being, I think, very excusable in his story, I am necessitated to say that in this reign, the Roman Catholics of England did not behave like gentlemen to the Protestants.
And vice versa. In less enlightened times, an ambitious clergyman was not above a little expediency.
For in my faith and loyalty I never more will falter, and George my lawful king shall be.
Until the times do alter, and this is the law that I'll maintain, until my dying day, so that whatsoever king shall reign, I'll be the vicar of praise. This royal throne of kings, this sceptred isle, this earth of majesty, this seat of Mars, this other Eden demi-paradise. This fortress, built by nature for herself against infection and the hand of war. This happy breed of men, this little world, this precious stone, set in the silver sea which serves it as the office of a wall, or as a moat defensive to a house against the envy of less happy lands. This blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England. A country under threat needs a leader, but Henry V, walking disguised amongst his troops on the eve of battle, discovered some unwelcome home truths about the popular perception of the monarchy.
Hey, it's certain, when a man dies ill, he ought upon his own head. The king's not to answer it.
I do not design to answer to me, and yet I am determined to fight lustily for him.
I myself heard the king say he would not be ransomed.
I may say so, to make us fight cheerfully. But when our throats are cut, maybe ransom we none the wiser.
If I live to see it, I will never trust his word after.
Will you pay him then? Never trust his word after. God, 'tis a foolish saying.
You reprove of something too much. I should be angry with you if the time convenient.
Let it be a quarrel between us then, if you live.
I embrace it.
How shall I know thee again?
In the engagement line, and wear it to my bonnet. Then, if thou ever darest to acknowledge it, I will make it my call.
Here's my glove, give me another and grind.
There.
This I will also wear in my cap. And if thou comes to me and says after tomorrow, this is my glove, by this hand I'll take a box on the ear.
If I have lived to see it, I will challenge it.
Thou darest as well be hanged.
Well, I will, though I take you in the king's company.
Keep thy word. Bear thee well.
Be friends, you English fools, be friends. We have friends closer now who can tell how to reckon.
Upon the king, rests our lives, our souls, our debts, our careful wives, our children and our sins, learn the king. must bear all. O her condition, twin born with greatness, subject to the breath of every fall, whose sense no more can feel but his own meaning. What infinite heart sees, must kings forget what private men enjoy, and what of kings that privates have not to? Save sermon, save general ceremony, and what art thou? Thou idle ceremony. Art thou what else but place, degree and form, creating awe and fear in other men? Art thou less happy being feared than they in fear? What drinkest thou of instead of homage sweet, but poison flattery? Wait sick, greatness, and bid thy ceremony give thee cure.
Edward the Fifth. This king was murdered by his uncle's contrivance, whose name was Richard the Third. The character of this prince has in general been very severely handled by historians, but as he was a York, I am rather inclined to suppose him a very respectable man. Be that as it may, Henry Tudor, as great a villain as ever lived, made a great fuss about getting the crown, and having killed King Richard at the Battle of Bosworth, he succeeded to it. His eldest daughter, however, was married to the King of Scotland, and had the happiness of being the grandmother to one of the first characters in the world. Mary Tudor, I cannot pity the kingdom for the misfortunes they experienced during her reign, as if they might have foreseen that since he died without children, she would have been succeeded by that pest to society, that disgrace to humanity, Elizabeth.
She is a wonderful woman. Were she but a Catholic, she would be unequalled. Consider the excellence by which she reigns. She is but a woman. She rules but half an island. And yet she inspires fear in France, in Spain, in the Emperor, in everybody.
I am your anointed queen. I will never be by violence constrained to do anything. I thank God that I am endowed with such qualities that if I were turned out of the realm in my petticoat, I were able to live in any place in Christendom. Though God hath raised me high, yet this I count the glory of my crown, that I have reigned with your loves. I care not for myself. My life is not dear to me. My care is for my people.
And yet Elizabeth could pull rank in an instant. The Bishop of Ely had the temerity to object to her demands that he give up his gateway and 40 acres of the palace gardens at Ely.
Proud prelate, remember what you were before I made you what you are. If you do not at once comply with my request, by God, I will unfrock you.
The bishop complied, and he received in rent from Her Majesty 1 rose per year.
I was never in
24 pigs, 4 stags and 16 bucks used for 176 pastries,
1,200 chickens.
363 capons,
6 turkeys.
6 cartloads of oysters and fish,
2,500 eggs.
430 pounds of butter.
But the autocratic monarch was also a woman, prey to passions and famous, almost notorious for her extravagant favoritism.
My Lord Essex.
Most dear lady, your kind and often sending is able to raise a man of more than half dead to life again. Since I was first so happy to know what love meant, I was never for one day nor 1 hour free from hope and jealousy. And as long as you do me right, they are the inseparable companions of my life. If your majesty do, in the sweetness of your own heart, nourish the one and the justice of love, free me from the tyranny of the other, you will ever make me happy.
He hath played long enough for me, and now I will to play a while upon him, and stand as much upon my greatness as he hath upon stomach.
But it was a woman who discovered the Queen's most deep-seated insecurities, as Sir James Melville recalls in his memoirs.
After I had heard a while, seeing her back was towards the door, I entered in to listen to her play. But as soon as she turned around and saw me, she ceased immediately.
Sir James, how came you in?
I heard such music as delighted me, and was drawn here ere I knew how.
I would know of you, sir. Which of us plays best? Myself? Or your own queen, Mary Stuart?
There is no doubt in this matter, madam. I must give you the praise.
And which of us dances best, sir?
And my queen dances well, but neither so highly nor so disposedly as your majesty.
And which of us is the fairest? Which?
And you are both the fairest in your own countries. You are the fairest in England, and my queen is the fairest in Scotland.
Sir, you are pleasant with me. Which?
Your majesty is whiter, but my queen is very lovely.
And which of higher stature?
My queen.
I did not hear you, sir.
And my queen is something higher.
Then she is too high, Sir James. Too high. For I myself am neither too high nor too low.
Your majesty.
To the most Christian king, Henri the Third of France, my brother and old ally. Oh, brother, having by God's will, for my sins I think, thrown myself into the power of the Queen, my cousin, I have finally been condemned to death by her and early states. Tonight, after dinner, I have been advised of my sentence. I am to be executed like a criminal at 8 in the morning. I have not had time to give you a full account of everything that has happened. But if liberty of sending you 2 precious stones. Talismans against illness. Trusting that you will enjoy good health and a long and happy life. Again, I commend my substance to you. Oh, give instructions if it please you, that for my soul's sake, part of what you owe me will be paid. And for the sake of Jesus Christ, to whom I shall pray for you tomorrow as I die, I be left enough to found a memorial mass and to give the customary alms. Wednesday, at 2 in the morning, your most loving and true sister, Mary R.
Whatever her faults, Elizabeth was a truly inspirational leader. On the news of the planned Spanish invasion of England, she addressed 16,000 troops assembled at Tilbury.
My loving people! We have been persuaded by some that are careful of our safety to take heed how we commit ourselves to armed multitudes, for fear of treachery. But I assure you, I do not live to distrust my faithful, loving people. Let tyrants fear. I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and of a king of England too. Rather than any dishonor should grow by me, I myself will take up arms. I myself will be your general, judge, and rewarder of every one of your virtues in the field. When I was young and fair, and favor graced me, of many was I sought, their mistress for to be. But I did scorn them all, and answered them therefore, go, go, seek some other way, importune me no more. When I grew old, such change grew in my breast, that neither night nor day could I take any rest. Oh, lo, then did I repent that I had said before. Go, 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 seek some other way, importune me no more.
Imprisoned in the tower, there was little I could learn apart from what my warder chose to tell me. This I did witness. In those last few days in which she lay dying, beyond all hope of recovery, a strange silence descended upon the whole city, as if it were under interdict, nor divine worship suspended. Not a bell rang out, though ordinarily they were often heard.
Charles I, the events of this monarch's reign are too numerous for my pen, and indeed, the recital of any events is uninteresting to me. My principal reason for undertaking the history of England were to abuse Elizabeth, though I am not fearful in
was removed, their ideas began to blow about all over the place. How hasn't it?
So said H.G. Wells. And yet here was a woman that on the morning after her wedding declared that she had enjoyed
a most gratifying and bewildering night.
She was also readily amused. On one occasion, she invited the elderly Admiral Foley to discuss the salvaging of the frigate Eurydice sunk off Portsmouth. The Admiral was very hard of hearing.
This is a most melancholy matter, Admiral.
I beg your pardon, Ma'am?
The Eurydice, a valid business.
Oh, indeed, Ma'am.
Now tell me, how is my friend, your sister?
Well, Ma'am, I'm going to have her turned over, take a good old look at her bottom, and have it well scraped.
She held firm views on the equality of the sexes.
The Queen is most anxious to enlist the help of all those who can speak or write to join in checking this mad, wicked folly of women's rights, with all its attendant horrors. Its proponents ought to get a good whipping. The Queen is so furious that she can hardly contain herself. God created men and women different. Then let them remain, each in their own position.
Following the birth of her eldest son, she did realise that in one area at least some adjustment might be made.
Men never think, we seldom think, how hard it is for us women to go through this very often.
God's will ordained the birth of 9 children to the Queen, a process halted not by God but by her doctors. Nothing, however, could prepare Victoria or indeed the nation for the agony of losing her adored Albert.
I went over at 7. It was a bright morning, the sun just rising and shining brightly. The room had a sad look of night watching. The candles burnt down in their sockets. The doctors looking anxious. Never can I forget how beautiful my darling looked, lying there, his face lit up by the rising sun, his eyes shining brightly, gazing, as it were, on unseen objects, and not taking notice of me. How am I alive after witnessing what I have done? I, who prayed daily that we might die together, and I not survive him? How shall I, who leaned on him for all and everything, without whom I did nothing, move not a finger, didn't arrange print or photograph, didn't put on a gown or bonnet unless he approved it? How shall I be able to go on, to live, to move, to help myself at difficult moments? The day, the night, above all, the night is too sad and weary.
She never recovered. Let us remember Victoria as she was, the eager young queen full of life and energy and a sense of her own destiny. Here is an extract from her private memoirs in which she describes her feelings on the morning of her coronation.
I was awoke at 4 by the guns in the park. I got up at 7, feeling strong and well. I dressed, taking a little breakfast before I dressed, and a little after. At 10, I got into the state coach. We began our progress. It was
hath no stomach for this fight, let him depart. His passport shall be made, and crowns for convoy put in his purse. We would have died in that man's company, but his fellowship to die with us. This day is called the Feast of Crispin. And he that outlives this day and comes safe home will stand a tiptoe when this day is named and rouse him at the name of Crispin. He that outlives this day and sees old age will yearly on the vigil feast his neighbours and say, tomorrow is Crispin. Then shall he strip his sleeve and show his scars and say, these wounds I had on Crispin's day. Old men forget, yet all would be forgot, but he'll remember with advantages what things he did that day. Then shall our names, familiar in his mouth as household words, Harry the King, Bedford and Exeter, Warwick and Talbot, Salisbury and Gloucester, be in his cup freshly remembered. This story shall the good man teach his son, and Crispin shall ne'er go by from this day to the end of the earth, but we in it shall be remembered. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers, for he today which sheds his blood with me shall be my brother, be he ne'er so vile this day shall gentle his condition. And gentlemen in England now abed shall build themselves accursed they will not hear, and hold their manhood cheap, while any speaks back thought with us on St. Crispin's Day.
For God's sake, let us sit upon the ground and tell sad stories of the death of kings. How some have been deposed, some slain in war, some haunted by the ghosts they had deposed, some poisoned by their wives, some sleeping killed, all murdered. For within the hollow crown that rounds the mortal temples of a king keeps death his court. And there the antic sits, scoffing his state, grinning at his pomp, allowing him to breathe a little scene, to monarchize, be feared and killed with looks, infusing him with self and vain conceit, as if this flesh which walls about our life